Hi, I'm Mike Roda with Review.com, and today we're going to be making pork sausage using a KitchenAid Stand Mixer and the sausage grinding attachment you can get basically anywhere they sell the KitchenAid. Amazon, at a Home Goods, or a local hardware store. So the best way to make pork sausage is pork shoulder. And generally what you would do is get a big hunk of meat and you can cut it up and dice it up that way. I went to the store and got a couple of packages that were already pre-diced. There's a lot of fat and kind of gristle in it, so I'm going to have to clean it up a little bit. What I'm looking for is about a pound of meat and about a quarter pound of fat. You actually need extra fat when you're making pork sausage to keep it moist so that when you cook it up, it doesn't dry out and crumble apart. As you're cutting up your pork shoulder or separating out some of the bits and bobs, what you want to do is get rid of the skin. The skin is not going to be helpful. What you do want though is the fat on the underside. So what I'm doing here is, to the best of my ability, I'm just kind of shaving off the available meat and then setting the skin and the fat aside so that at the end of this I can add some of the fat in to balance out some of the meat. So now that I have about a pound of meat and about a quarter pound of fat ready to go, what I want to do is put it in a Ziploc bag and then stick it in the freezer. The colder the meat is, the easier it is to grind and the less work you're going to have to do in the long run. So the meat's been in the freezer for a little over an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. It's not quite frozen, but it's almost there. So what I'm going to do right now is stop handling it with my hands as much as I can. Just going to put it in a bowl and then add the spices and mix it up with a pair of tongs so that the meat stays as cold as possible. So now I'm going to attach the KitchenAid grinder attachment. Now this comes with a couple of different plates that you can put in here. I have the widest one available for the largest chunks of sausage. We're making Italian style sausage, which tends to be pretty rustic, so you don't want it to be ground up too finely. If I pull this off, you can actually see this is the blade that spins and it pushes the meat through these tiny little holes at the same time. So it kind of grinds it up and squirts it out all at once. So the meat grinder has a nub on the back that you can just put right in the front top part of your KitchenAid. You want to make sure it's seated in there correctly and then screwed in and secure. When you're using a KitchenAid stand mixer and a grinder attachment, what you want to do is have the speed set to about 3 or 4. You don't want to go too much faster than that or it'll generate too much heat and the meat will start to warm up as you're grinding it. That's not a good thing. So we've gotten our first batch of sausage already ground up. It went through very quickly and there's not a lot of mess. Again, cold meat and cold meat grinder is the key to doing this as efficiently and cleanly as possible. So now we've got ground up meat. This is generally okay for things like breakfast sausage. You don't need to actually put it in a casing. But since I'm doing spicy Italian sausage, I actually am going to put this in some casings and I'll show you how that process works in just a second. So here we have our casings. You can get synthetic ones. We actually went to a butcher shop and got the real deal. If you can't find them in the grocery store or at your local butcher, just ask. Ask at the counter. Generally they have some in the back and they should be more than happy to get some for you. And they're relatively inexpensive. I think I have 8 to 10 feet of casings here and it cost me less than $2. So to get the casings ready for use, what you want to do is run a little bit of water through the entire length just so you can double check and make sure that the casing itself doesn't have any holes in it, and this process actually also serves to help kind of loosen it up and make sure that it's not stuck together. So I'm getting ready to actually stuff the sausage. I cleaned out the meat grinder and took out the blade and the meat grinding attachment. And all I'm going to do is put in this small plastic piece to hold the screw that pushes the meat through in place. Put the funnel on and then screw this together like so. Put this back on the mixer. And I'm just going to slide the whole thing right onto the front here so that as the sausage comes out and into the casing, it'll pull itself off. You'll see here in a second. What I want to do at the end is just tie it off with a simple knot. And then I'm going to actually poke a little hole in the actual casing itself so that as I start to feed meat through, when it's coming through in the beginning and there's just kind of air pushing through, that bubble doesn't end up in the sausage itself. Okay, so I'm going to turn the mixer back on to about speed 4 and start feeding some sausage through. So as you can tell, this is a lot easier with 2 people. I actually had to recruit my cameraman. It's easier for one person to feed the meat through while somebody else sort of handles the actual casings and the sausage itself. Okay, so we fed the whole pound through. Now what I'm going to do is just sort of twist this end off. Pull out a little bit extra casing here, and there we go. Make a cut. Tie off the end of this. There we have it. And there you go. What you have is a complete hot Italian sausage. Now if you want to break this up into links, the easiest way to do that is just to grab a section like this, kind of pinch off about how long you want it, and then just spin it. And then do the same thing. So figure about that long looks good. And then spin it the other direction. There we have it. Spicy Italian sausage. This can go on the stove. You can do this in pasta. You can do that on the grill. Best probably to use it in about a week. When you're making your own sausage, there's not a lot of preservatives, so you want to remember to cook it all the way through to 160 degrees, and make sure you use it in about a week or freeze it.